Some people do not break when life takes something from them. Sometimes, we break when one public shame convinces us we were never worth much to begin with. We can lose money and still keep walking. We can lose comfort and still keep breathing. But when we lose the place that made us feel useful, the place that made us feel chosen, the place that let us believe we were finally becoming someone, that is when panic begins to whisper that our whole life is over. And panic is dangerous for one reason. It never waits for time to speak. It sees one closed door and immediately calls it the end. But sometimes, the place we beg life not to take from us is the very place quietly destroying us. If you have ever lost a role, a job, or a place that made you feel like someone, this story is for you. Because in a small village at the foot of Green Hills, a young potter once believed his future had been destroyed in a single morning. But the day he thought life had thrown him away may have been the day life pulled him out of the wrong hands. At the edge of the village stood the largest pottery yard for many miles. Its kilns burned day and night. Merchants came from nearby towns to buy its jars and grain pots. For men with no land and no inheritance, the yard was more than work. It was bread. It was standing. It was the difference between being called useful and being called a burden. Ravi had worked there since boyhood. He was 23 now. Lean, careful, strong. Not the most gifted craftsman in the yard, but steady enough to be trusted near the firing kiln. That trust mattered more to him than he admitted. Ravi had no field, no respected family name, and no savings for some grand future. What he had was a place. Each morning he entered through the same gate. Each evening he returned covered in clay dust, exhausted but certain of one thing: his life was moving somewhere. He even allowed himself to believe that one more year of saving might be enough to marry Mira, the girl whose father kept asking polite questions about his stability. And Ravi had learned that stability was just another word for being allowed to hope. So when he heard the scrape of wheel against clay and the crackle of fire, he did not just hear labor. He heard proof. Proof that he was not wasting his life. Proof that he was becoming someone. That was why the morning everything changed did not feel, at first, like an accident. It felt like judgment. The largest kiln in the yard had been packed heavily the night before. A wealthy merchant had placed a large order before the next market festival, and Master Devon, the owner, wanted everything ready in time. Men worked late. The loading was rushed. The fire burned hotter than usual. Ravi took the final watch near dawn. When the first cracking sound came, it was small enough to ignore. Then another. Then a deep, violent split echoed through the kiln wall. Heat burst from the side like a wounded animal tearing open its own skin. By the time the workers forced the fire down and opened the chamber, the damage was done. Jars had warped. Others had split. Several had collapsed into one another, ruining the rest. The courtyard fell silent. Master Devon arrived not long after. He looked once at the damaged batch, once at the cracked kiln wall, and then at Ravi. Who had the final watch? Ravi stepped forward. For 1 second, he believed he would be asked what had happened. Instead, Devon's face hardened with the quick certainty of a man who needed a culprit more than he needed truth. "You were trusted with the last hours," he said. "And now look." Ravi opened his mouth.
You can't just let this happen, Devon.
"Master,
we have
the
to
wall
do
had been
something.
straining for
Please
days.
just.
I heard the... You heard and you did nothing?" The other workers lowered their eyes. No one moved. No one helped. No one wanted to stand too close to a man already being chosen as the sacrifice. Ravi felt heat rise through his body, not from the kiln, but from the eyes gathering on him. "I did not cause this," he said. Master Devon stepped closer. "In this yard, the man who stands watch is responsible for what survives the night." Then, in front of everyone, he pointed toward the gate. "Take your wages for the last week and leave. You will not work here again." The words landed harder than the kiln collapse itself, because a ruined batch could be remade. But a man dismissed publicly did not just lose work. He lost face. As he lost standing? Ravi stood there with clay on his arms and ash on his clothes, while the yard that had once felt like the shape of his future suddenly looked at him as if he had become dangerous to stand near. No one argued for him. No one said the kiln had been old. No one said the firing had been rushed. When shame enters a crowd, courage often leaves first. Ravi took the small cloth purse they handed him. It felt far too light. Then he walked out through the gate he had entered almost every day for years, and with every step, one thought beat louder inside him. It is over. By noon, the village knew. Women drawing water paused when he passed. Men near the tea stall lowered their voices, but not enough. Ravi kept walking. He did not go to Mira's house. He did not go home by the main path. He did not want his mother to see his face before he had learned how to rearrange it into something less broken. At last, he circled behind the pottery yard, toward the place where damaged pieces were dumped. Broken rims, collapsed bowls, pieces too flawed to sell and too compromised to trust. That was where he saw the old man. Hari sat on a flat stone with a chipped water pot between his knees. Beside him lay a basket filled with cast-off pieces from the yard. People in the village knew him as the man who repaired what others discarded, the kind of work people respected only when desperate enough to need it. Hari did not look up immediately. Then he said, almost to himself, "People throw things away too quickly when they are angry." Ravi stopped. For a moment, he thought the old man was speaking about the broken pottery. Then he realized the words had found him too cleanly. "I am not a pot," Ravi snapped. Hari lifted his eyes. "No," he said. "Pots are often judged more carefully." Ravi should have walked away. Instead, he stood there, the humiliation still burning so brightly inside him that even irritation felt like relief. "You know nothing about what happened." Hari nodded once. "That is possible." Then he looked back down at the vessel in his hands and said, "But I know this. A thing can crack long before the day someone chooses to blame the wrong person for it." Ravi's jaw tightened. "Easy for you to say." Hari said nothing. Ravi took a step closer, anger rising because anger felt better than helplessness. "You sit here repairing scraps. You do not know what it is to be thrown out in front of the whole village." Now, Hari looked at him fully. "I know what it is," he said, "to be thrown away by the same hands you trusted to build your future." The sentence struck Ravi silent. He went home eventually. His mother wept when she understood, not only because the money was gone, but because the village had watched him lose it. The next morning, he woke with the same heaviness pressing against his ribs. He had no plan, no alternative work, no answer for the people who would ask what he intended to do now. So by midday, he found himself back near the broken yard. Hari was there again. "There is more work than pride in this corner," he said. "That is why few men come willingly." He pushed a basket toward Ravi. Inside were cracked bowls and damaged lids. "Sort what can still hold water from what cannot." Ravi stared at him. "That is your work?" "It is work enough to feed an old man." Ravi almost laughed. "I worked in the main yard," he said. "I handled kiln batches meant for merchants." Hari did not react. "Yes," he said. "And today you are sorting broken bowls." The words should have humiliated Ravi further. Instead, because they were spoken without cruelty, they stripped him of the luxury of pretending. So he sat. At first, he worked with disgust, then with boredom, and then with the dull numbness of a man doing something far beneath the story he had once planned for himself. But Hari was not saving scraps out of sentiment. He was precise. Then Hari picked up a badly cracked lamp Ravi had already thrown aside. "This one," Ravi said, "is finished." Hari said nothing. He heated resin, pressed the fracture line, reset the broken lip, then poured a little oil into it. and lit the wick. The lamp held. Its flame burned steadily. Ravi stared at it. Hari did not smile. "That is the trouble with anger," he said. "It makes people judge by the first wound they can see." By sunset, Ravi had begun sorting more carefully than he meant to. Hari noticed, the world is often in the wrong mood when it decides what is worth keeping. That sentence stayed with Ravi. 3 days later, he found the courage to ask, "Who threw you away?" Hari's hands did not stop moving. Then he said, "The same kind of men who threw you away, men who needed blame to stand somewhere safer than truth." Ravi waited. Hari finally looked up. "When I was younger, I worked in the main yard too." Ravi frowned. "I have never seen you there. That is because shame can exile a man long after the gate is done with him." Hari's voice remained calm, but it was not the calm of distance. It was the calm of something that had already burned all the way through. "There was a collapse," he said. "Years ago. A firing arch failed. A worker was injured. The owner blamed the men beneath him. I was one of them." Ravi went still. "I thought if I begged hard enough, explained clearly enough, worked loyally enough, truth would matter." Hari looked down at the cracked bowl in his lap. It did not. "That day, I did not only lose work. I lost the story I had built around it. I had mistaken the yard for my future. So, when it threw me out, I thought life had done the same." Ravi said nothing. Hari continued, "It took me years to understand this. A place can feed your body while quietly starving your future." Then he added more gently, "Do not worship what merely uses you." A week later, the truth about the pottery yard came fully into the open. The merchant from town returned with 2 assistants and a local official. The kiln inspection revealed more than a crack. The supports had been weakened for months. Inferior clay had been mixed into premium orders. Repairs had been delayed because Master Devon kept cutting costs. Men still in the yard were being held until losses were accounted for. Not imprisoned, perhaps, but trapped, forced to remain, forced to work without fair pay. And the part that shook Ravi most was this: the yard he had called his future was not collapsing because he left. It had been collapsing long before he ever thought it was safe. If he had remained, if the kiln had not split that night, if he had not been made the scapegoat and shoved out before the merchant's return, he would still be there, still inside a place already rotting from the inside, still tying his future to a man who would gladly have used his labor to cover his own dishonesty, still begging a broken system to tell him he mattered. Ravi sat down slowly. At last he looked at Hari. "I thought that day was the day my life broke." Hari was sealing the inside sime of a cracked storage jar. Without looking up, he said, "Maybe it was only the day life stopped letting you build yourself inside a broken place." Ravi swallowed. Hari set the jar aside and finally met his eyes. "Being sent away hurts," he said. "I will not lie to you about that. Shame is real. Fear is real. Hunger is real. But pain is not always proof that you have been destroyed." Ravi's face tightened. "Then what is it proof of?" Hari answered gently. "Sometimes nothing more than this. You judged the day before time had shown you what it was saving you from." Then, after a pause, he added, "What feels like rejection can sometimes be rescue arriving in a form your pride refuses to recognize." The next morning, Ravi returned before sunrise. Not because someone told him to, not because wisdom had suddenly turned him peaceful, but because for the first time since the kiln collapse, he no longer felt like a man waiting for his real life to resume. He felt like a man standing inside it. Hari gave him harder work now. Resetting handles, grinding sealing ash, learning how heat changed clay. learning how weakness could be reinforced if you understood where the strain truly lived. Months later, people in the village began bringing their damaged vessels directly to the old man's corner instead of throwing them behind the yard. And increasingly, it was Ravi's hands that received them. The irony was almost too perfect. The man once cast out as damaged had begun earning his living by restoring what others dismissed too quickly. He did not become rich. The village did not suddenly apologize. Life remained life. But Ravi changed in a deeper way than success alone could have produced. He no longer mistook one public wound for the final truth about his worth. He no longer called every closed door a verdict. And whenever he held a cracked bowl long enough to discover it could still be mended, he remembered the day he had sat on the edge of the broken yard, believing he had become useless. He had not been useless. He had only been standing at the wrong gate, asking the wrong place to tell him who he was. Maybe that is what we learned too late. We think our value lives inside the roles that feed us, the titles that introduce us, the places that make us feel chosen. So when one of those things is taken away, panic rushes in and says, "Now you are no one." But sometimes what is removed from us is not our future. It is only the place we were using to hide from it. Sometimes life does not pull us out of something to punish us. Sometimes it pulls us out because we have stood too long in a place that was quietly destroying us. So if you are losing something right now, a role, a job, a plan, a place that once made you feel like someone, or do not be too quick to decide what that loss must mean. Time may still be explaining it. And if this story found you at the right moment, write one word in the comments: rebuild. And if these are the kinds of stories your heart needs right now, stay with us for the next one. Not because stories solve everything, but because sometimes a story names a pain you have been carrying alone for too long. And sometimes that is where healing begins.